Hello everyone and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. Here's a quick quiz for you. True or false? Justice means treating everyone equally. If you answered true, you get the big sound. Wrong. Justice does not mean treating everyone the same. In fact, it means exactly the opposite, treating everyone differently. Why? Because we're all different and in different circumstances. Take the case of two school friends. One studies a lot, the other screws around. Then they sit in for their geometry test, and to no one's surprise, Evan gets 100 and Johnny bombs it. Was the teacher unfair to Johnny? Has Johnny been done an injustice? Again, take the case of two men coming before a judge. One is a serial killer, the other is a petty thief. The judge sentences the serial killer to death or life in prison. The petty thief gets 6 months in the slammer. No one is bellyaching about the injustice meted out by the judge because justice was applied equally in each case. So what is justice? It's giving to each according to his due. It has nothing to do with equality or equal rights. When it comes to the issue of so-called gay marriage, unchaste homosexuals and their allies frame the discussion in terms of fairness and equality and justice. And their argument boils down to this. If straight people can get married, it's only fair that gays can get married. It's a what's good for the goose is good for the gander type of argument. Except the goose is not the gander, and that changes everything in the case of gay marriage. Homosexuals cannot be married because it is impossible by nature. There is no such thing as gay marriage. That's why opponents always call it so-called gay marriage. What societies and religions and governments call marriage is actually something that flows from our very human natures. It is a relationship that we apply the word marriage to, but the relationship is what comes first. And what is the central aspect of the relationship? Sexual union that brings about the next generation. The bringing forth and rearing of the next generation is an absolute necessity for the civilization to continue, any civilization. And since the continuation of the civilization or society is the first concern of the state or the government, the state has a vested interest in protecting the institution of marriage, the relationship. This is why every government in the history of the world, even the most simple tribes, regulate marriage. Free love, pairing up with whomever you want for however long you want, for essentially whatever reason you want, destroys societies eventually. A do-whatever-you-want attitude in sexual matters eventually brings societies to their end. Always has, always will. In the Western democracies where individual rights are celebrated as the highest good possible, the idea of the common good is obliterated. A simple look around shows what happens once families begin to break down. Emotional suffering of children, financial ruin, on and on. When it comes to feeling the consequences of our actions, there's something worth noting, and I call it the lag factor. You know, almost always, if you break a physical law of nature, the consequence is virtually immediate. Jumping off a cliff, consuming poison, sticking your hand in the fire. In each of these cases, a physical law is being violated and sentence is passed immediately. But when a moral law is violated, there is often a lag between crime and punishment. The adulterer, for example, is rarely caught in the act. The murderer often escapes justice for a prolonged period. And so it is with societies. When we collectively make immoral choices, there is often a time down the road when it's too late that the consequences finally exact their toll. Only now, for example, is it becoming clear the devastating economic effect abortion has had on America. 56 million consumers simply aren't here to produce, buy, and sell goods. Now, little by little, after a sinister marketing and public relations campaign where homosexual activists have gotten many Americans to see their case as a matter of justice, now courts and legislators are beginning to grant their sexual liaisons the status of legal marriage. They claim this to be a triumph of individual rights. In truth, no right exists. many people in society do not have the right to marry as they see fit. Marriage is composed of the foundational elements number and gender. Two people, one man, one woman. What activists want to do is undo one of those elements. They seek to have the state undo the gender element. But what if I come along and wish the state to also undo the number element? Can the state really forbid me my right to be married to multiple partners at the same time if it allows gays and lesbians to marry each other? What about gays who want multiple spouses at the same time? How can the state possibly refuse that right? What about the gay adult nephew who falls in love with his gay uncle? Can the state refuse to sanction their love? What about the adoptive father whose eye is drawn to his adopted stepdaughter? And that's happened. What of their love that dare not speak its name? What if everyone in a gay bar one Friday night wanted to marry each other? Show me the legal framework that could honestly deny that kind of union while permitting pairs of them to stroll down the street to City Hall and get married. And perhaps the loudest talking point of all, none of these unions are begetting the next generation, and that should be the state's primary concern. In the tiny minority that employ a surrogate mother to carry someone else's child to term, not the couple's child, mind you, someone else's child, there are oftentimes legal wranglings between the surrogate mother and the gays explode. And in the cases of children raised by gays, who's looking out for the rights of the child? We cannot speak of an all-encompassing right to marry, but we can certainly speak about a much broader right of the child to be raised in a natural home by a mother and a father, the way nature has ordained it to be. No one denies the pain and differentness that homosexuals will encounter and struggle with. A compassionate society, and certainly every society can be more compassionate and loving towards all its members, reaches out and helps those in the greatest need, especially when the need is not of their own making. But laws are not made for individuals. They are made to protect the common good. So-called gay marriage does not advance the common good. It destroys the common good by eventually diminishing the institution of marriage, the relationship that flows from our human nature and advances the continuation of the civilization. I'm Michael Voris.